Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County, and this show is about Plymouth County real estate. This show is taped in January. We're going to talk about the numbers for recordings in December. I have a great guest, Attorney John McCluskey, who will talk about issues relating to putting your property into different forms. If people are going into a nursing home to preserve their property, we're going to talk about some of our great Plymouth County history. So let's go right to the numbers. Real estate has shown somewhat of a downturn in Plymouth County as we make the turn into 2019. There were 808 deeds recorded in December, less than the 916 in November, down 9% from last December. But for 12 months in calendar year 18, only down 1%. Mortgages are a different story. People are still taking out mortgages to purchase properties, but there are a lot less people doing refinancing. There were 1,345 mortgages recorded in December, less than the 1,516 in November, down 25% compared to last December, and for the 12 months of calendar year 2018, down 10%. We always look at foreclosures. They were really a difficult problem back in the turn of 2008 and the crisis that we faced in real estate. They're down significantly. There were only 44 foreclosure deeds countywide in December, slightly more than the 43 in November, higher than last December, but for 12 months of 18, 12% lower than last year, and that was lower than the year before also. Foreclosure notices are also down. Foreclosure notices, when people get noticed they're starting to lose their property, usually for non-payment. 53 orders of notice recorded at the registry in December, less than the 61 in November, 70% less than last December, and for 12 months last year in 2018, we're down 22%. You're going to see a list of foreclosure deeds and orders of notice by communities for the month of December. Plymouth, Brockton, and Wareham have been the traditional trouble points. For people that would like, we do a free online training session at the Registry of Deeds. The next one will be Thursday, February 7th at 9 o'clock. It's a very efficient way to search our on-site online registry and all the documents we have. We go back now to 1686, Book 1, Page 1 of the Plymouth County Records. My guest on the show in the next segment, again, is Attorney John McCluskey, who will be discussing elder law as it affects real estate. So we'll see you in the next segment.
This is why you get by on 4 hours sleep. Why you took a second job. This is why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing and spend hours juggling the bills. This is why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Now more options are available. Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert today.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always do something educational in nature. We've had surveyors, appraisers, commercial real estate brokers, many realtors, and attorneys. And I have a great attorney with me today, a longtime member of the Plymouth County Bar, Attorney John McCluskey. Welcome, John.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. So first, if you don't mind sharing with your viewers a little bit about your firm and where you practice, John.
Sure. Well, as you know, I've been practicing law for a while, and I think this is just about my 40th year And I was down in Campello for many years at the old family homestead. And a few years ago, teamed up with Dave Rezovitz and Andy Rezovitz, and the firm is now at 1325 Belmont Street here in Brockton, just on the outskirts of town, right next to Stonehill property. And we cover, well, myself, I do a lot of elder planning, elder law. In addition, I do some Brockton zoning. I've been before the board many, many times. And those are the two basic areas that I'm practicing in, but it's mostly elder law. And the rest of the firm, it's a general practice law firm. Dave does personal injury, Andy does contracts, real estate, and I'm still involved in, as well, the real estate part of it. I do some commercial real estate for some of the lenders around here.
So your firm is on Belmont Street towards the eastern side of Panera.
Exactly, and soon to be right next door to Starbucks.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Because Starbucks is moving.
Oh, is it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the firm is Rezovitz McCluskey.
Rezovitz McCluskey, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about where we are in the real estate market before we get into elder law, which is what I had called you about. It's been a funny year. Certainly, from our perspective, was bursting early in the year, and it's kind of slowing down a little bit. Have you seen that same thing?
Well, I think I've seen it. I don't do any residential loans anymore. It's a little too demanding and just gets a little crazy. So I'm in the commercial area.
Okay.
And we've been busy throughout the year doing some loans for new construction. I've got a couple of subdivisions now that we're working on, which we hadn't seen for many years. And just permitted a project down in Brockton on West Elm Street. It's going to be a brand new 44-unit apartment building, state-of-the-art, and that's coming in with a loan. So there's some interesting things. And in fact, downtown Brockton seems to be coming back a bit, and there's more interest in spending some money down here.
Yeah, we just moved our satellite office that you and I had talked about earlier to 32 Belmont Street in Brockton, our Brockton satellite. And it does seem like there's more life going on.
Absolutely. Your move is a great move. That's a nice office. I had a closing there the other day.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I know one of your specialties is elder law.
Yes.
And I had some questions or comments from people the other day that were concerning that issue. And I know one of your specialties over the years in an organization that you belong to has done a lot with the Medicaid Trust.
The National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, right.
Right.
Yep, that's a great organization, all lawyers who do what I do. And you brought up an interesting question. It seems to me the most driving issue that brings people to my office, they come in and they say, we want a trust. And typically what they're thinking about is protecting the family home against that mass health spend down if they end up in the nursing home. There are many, many exceptions to the rules that allow us to maneuver around those tough regulations. But the biggest thing I'm seeing is people come in and say, we want to put our home into a trust. Last year there was a case that came down, actually two cases, the Nadeau and Doherty case, and it sort of defined the irrevocable trust situation. And what came out of that is it seems as if you use an irrevocable trust, it's really going to get scrutinized. So what I do is I often, if it all works well, if the family dynamics are good, what I do is a revocable trust created by the children. I prepare it, and one of the children is the trustee. The other children are the beneficiaries, and they give the right to the trustee in certain circumstances to help the parents out if they run into a problem in setting this up. But that's a trust that falls outside of the purview of the mass health regulations in that it's now a trust owned by the children. And so even though it's subject to the 5-year look back, that seems to work in many circumstances, and seems to be the answer to the irrevocable trust. And of course, if the parents create themselves a revocable trust, that doesn't work because Mass Health just says revoke it.
Yeah.
So we go through an exercise, though, before we decide to do that about is this where you're going to stay? Are you going to remain in this home for the rest of your life? What age are you? Are you still working? Have you retired? And where are you in that transition, if you will? Because if you put the house into the trust and then you decide to sell it, well, you don't own it anymore. So now there's a potential capital gain tax situation. So we study that carefully. We still use life estates on occasion, and life estate is deed the property and to the children, but reserve the right to live there. And the Nadeau case actually spoke to that life estate situation. Mass Health was trying to say that that property was totally available to be spent down, and the court corrected Mass Health and said no. But they did open the door to some other possibilities in the life estate situation that the client needs to know about.
Yeah, clearly there are a lot of people that talk to people on the street, and they're always warned that if you don't take action and make some legal changes, you're going to lose all your assets to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Right.
If you end up in a nursing home, and people that have worked their whole lives to build up assets that want to pass them on to their family want a solution. And they know that in the back of their mind there's a solution, but they don't know when to do it, they don't know the timing of it, they don't know the right questions to ask in many cases.
What I do is I sit down and ask a lot of questions about where you are in life, what your circumstances are, what you have for assets. And you're right, people talk to people, they come in and they say, this is what I want. And we end up, sometimes that is what they want, but oftentimes we tweak it, and that's not exactly what you want. And we make sure that once I get to know the whole picture, we give them the right solution.
So is the basic rule still a 5-year look back? Your property has to be out of your ownership 5 years before it's exempt from being taken over by the state?
First of all, you can transfer your assets to a spouse,
Okay.
and there's no 5-year look back.
Okay.
You can transfer all of your assets, including the house, to the spouse. And then in that situation, you might be using annuities, but the 5-year look back doesn't apply there. Where it does apply is that if you're just giving the property to your children, there are a couple of exceptions to that. There can be a caregiver child who's in the home, who's lived there for a period of 2 years, and who has provided care to the parents for, I like to at least get up to that 2-year period. And I have them diary and tell me exactly what they have done, to take care of the parents. And sometimes it might be hiring help to come in. That's still caring for them. But I make sure that we establish exactly what they've done so that when asked by the Division of Medical Assistance, we can come up with a good answer. The other one is if you have a disabled child. I had a fellow that came in, he'd been living with his mother. She's now in the nursing home, and he's on disability. We transferred everything to him, money, house, and everything, and it's protected. So there are exceptions, but most of the time, you don't have those situations, so you are looking at that 5-year look back.
So when someone comes in and they do the process and decide with you what it is they're going to do, and somebody ends up being admitted to a nursing home, is it part of the admissions process that they have to work with the state and fill out all the forms, or how?
Well, we do the application for
Okay.
them. So
that's an application for what?
it's an application to Mass Health
Okay.
for long-term care benefits.
Okay.
There are also benefits in the community, and this is an interesting area because let's say you have a spouse at home that's got some dementia, and you need care, you need some help. We apply the Mass Health regulations, but the cap is that the spouse, the healthy spouse, can't have more than $125,600. So sometimes and often we've got too much. We can actually give away assets hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets if you wanted to, and qualify the next month for in the community mass health benefits. They don't apply the look back to that situation.
Wow.
So that is very interesting, and in fact, up until about a year ago, they didn't even ask about the spouse's assets. We just put everything in the spouse's name and qualified the person at home, but I think they caught on to that.
So were there changes in law or just changes in practices?
I think it's just changes in the practice, because if you look at the regulations, it clearly looks like you can't be doing any gifting for any kind of mass health eligibility. So it's interesting, and you need to, go to somebody who understands that.
Yeah.
And the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys is a good resource for that. There's lawyers in every community who are good at this. And the nice thing is that we always try to help each other out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if someone were to be reaching out to an attorney that they know or have had before, or somebody that was recommended, what is the question they should ask about the lawyer and about the law firm?
Most of the time, the
to get-
lawyers that don't do this
Yeah.
will say, I've got somebody who can
Okay.
do it for you. Because it's really, you can get yourself into some trouble if you don't do it the right
Well, what
way.
is the term that you would say you are qualified to do?
I'm an elder law attorney and
Okay.
qualified. I hold myself out as trying to protect your assets the best I can. And most of the time, we can accomplish that. There are some situations that it's too late. So that brings the question, when do you
Right.
when do you do that planning?
Question that's always asked.
Yeah. At the very least, if we're not going to be doing any gifting or anything, I make sure that we have a good general durable power of attorney in place, because if something drastic happens, you got a problem.
Yeah. I mean, people always raise the fact that, and are afraid they're losing control.
Right.
And if they're giving it to family members, whether that may be accessible if they have marital issues.
Oh, if the children have
Yes.
marital issues, that's one of the things I go through.
Yeah.
And, I had a client this morning who we talked about the possibility of conveying assets to a disabled child. And the people in the room said, not that child.
Okay.
That's not going to work.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll
Sure.
never see the assets again.
Everyone has
Yeah.
different questions and different
Or,
issues.
or you have a situation where the child is going through a divorce.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what would you do differently in a situation like that?
Well, every situation is different. You could possibly not make that child a beneficiary of the trust, but in general, the family members always want to make sure that everybody's taken care of. So, sometimes you just have to go with a different route. You maybe do some gifting and not set up a trust. In general, usually the families all are comfortable that things will work, and I'd say 5% or so, it's not going to work.
So there's always the competing issue of the Commonwealth doesn't want to pay nursing home costs for people with assets,
Right.
and the owners want to save their assets for their family. Have there been any changes of movement over the last few years, or has it been pretty stable?
Well, I'd say Mass Health is looking hard all the time at what you're doing. And we, for years and years and years, had an irrevocable trust, which Mass Health accepted without question. Now they don't do it anymore. And so that's why I've gotten away from the irrevocable trust aspect. That wasn't a change in the regulations. That was just a change in the way they look at things. And they really scrutinize what you're doing.
Any reason for that change, you think?
I think it's just an administrative change, probably came from the top and said, let's get a little tougher. And the other interesting thing was they were applying the regulations differently in Springfield at the Mass Health office than they were in Taunton and or in Worcester. So now they seem to all be on the same page and applying them the same way.
So once you prepare the application for Mass Health coverage, Is there a meeting that happens, or is it just a review?
No,
that they
we
do?
submit it. It gets assigned to an office. We like to hope that it gets assigned to the Taunton office, but I've got cases sometimes that they ship it out to Springfield. And it's really a matter of documenting everything. And so the client, we make the client do a lot of work in getting us documentation. But usually, we've been very successful with these applications. You always get them coming back and for an information request, and they ask for more things. Sometimes it's just because there's been a passage of time and they want updated financial information or a new tax return or something like that. But, and it depends. Some of them, they go right through quickly, and some take a while. If there are certain things that the worker cannot do, they cannot, so on a disabled child situation, they'll reject it and it'll go to an appeal. Well, you know at appeal, the hearing officer is going to look at it and say, okay, this fits. But they don't have the authority to do that at the ground level.
Any future trends making it tougher, or what do you feel from your perspective?
Well, I think people are, now becoming more savvy to it, and I have lots of appointments on a regular basis, people coming in and looking at things more than they would have. No longer do you hear people saying, well, I've got my will, I'm all set. They bring their will in and they say, I want you to take a look at this and see what else we need to do.
Well, so most of the properties we have recorded at the registry are in the name of individuals. So that certainly is something that people should look at as people age.
Yeah.
What about younger people that looking to put their property in trust for shielding and protection issues? You come across much of that?
A little bit.
Why don't you explain to the public a little bit how that works?
So it used to be that people would come in and they'd want to put their property into trust for avoidance of probate. They changed the probate rules a few years ago, and now the probate process is much easier. So that seems to have gone away a little bit, that they're not as concerned. In the probate process today, if you're doing an informal probate, you file it, the clerk looks at it, sends it back, and you're appointed, and then they close the case. I was surprised one day when I went down to look at the file, and they said case closed on it. I had just filed it the month before. So that's a very easy probate process, but sometimes people still want to protect their assets by putting them in trust. Again, often because they heard their neighbor did that. And
Right.
When you come to liability issues, I make sure that even though you put your property in a trust, make sure you've got the insurance protection that's going to step in, because you're not going to, even by putting it into a trust, you're not going to avoid a lawsuit, and the insurance lawyers will step in and defend you, and that's valuable. That saves you a lot of money.
So typically when someone's putting their property into trust, they pick the name, they decide who the trustees are, or how's that work?
I talk it over with them. And typically would use the family name, and the trustees, usually they're the one, they rise to the surface. If it's a younger couple and they're doing it to avoid probate, they're going to be the trustees. And then their children will be the contingent beneficiaries and trustees. And then you get into the situation of how old are the kids, and who would you select as an alternate if the children are too young. Yeah.
And you put right in the trust the age that they would be.
Oftentimes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. So let's take out our crystal ball and see where we're headed for the remainder of 2019. I know we're just barely into it. There's a lot going on in the world right now. The economy, the stock market, the government being frozen with no budget,
Yesterday,
furloughs, layoffs.
Yesterday, I went to get a tax ID number in an estate.
Yeah.
We just go online and type it in, and it pops right up. What popped up was I applied when they were after hours. This was around noontime. So I was a victim of the government shutdown. We couldn't even get that tax ID number. So it's affecting us in many, many ways.
So I've been told that there are other certifications that people are having trouble with, that as this goes on, it's going to hold up and slow down real estate. Any thoughts on that? FHA
Oh,
approvals,
that's
all
a
that
good
kind of stuff?
point. Quite frankly, I don't know, but I can
Yeah.
suspect that if there's any government agency involved in the financing,
Slowing down or not get it?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
I know there have been people complaining about the floodplain approvals and all that because nobody's working.
Nobody's working, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we'll see how it impacts upon our January.
Yeah, and I think every day people are slower and quicker and quicker realizing how it is affecting them. One of my young associates who gets to go on vacation, I stay home and work. He's going to the airport today. I said, you better get there real
Oh,
early.
right.
Yeah.
3-hour wait in some
A
places.
3-hour wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So why don't you take a moment and share your contact information with people, John?
Sure. So it's John McCluskey. I'm at 1325 Belmont Street in Brockton. My phone is 508-583-2221. My email address is john, John, @rmlawma.com. And I'm not going to give you my cell phone number.
Well, Bill Callahan did. Well, thank you. It's always
Okay.
great.
Always a
Always
pleasure.
good to see you.
Yep.
Thanks.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Call this free government program for the option that's right for you.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. And Attorney John McCluskey did a great job describing the complications that are involved in keeping your property when someone goes into a nursing home. You really need an elder law attorney if you're going to be deciding what to do with your property, and someone that is involved in it regularly, and he certainly did a good job describing that. For January, the holidays were New Year's Day, January 1st, Martin Luther King Day coming up on the 21st. We always do something this month relative to situations in land records as related to race issues in America and certainly in Plymouth County. There's a place in Plymouth called the New Guinea Settlement. Land was granted to Black Revolutionary War soldiers who fought on behalf of the creation of America and were given land by the town of Plymouth to build a settlement. 94 acres of land on the Plymouth-Kingston line. It's called the Parting Ways Cemetery. It was one of America's first free black settlements, and right near Route 80 on Plymouth. It's a place you can visit. Some of the foundations of those buildings are still there. And certainly during the Civil War era, pre-Civil War era in particular, there were a lot of places in Plymouth County that were the site of abolitionist meetings. One in particular was Island Grove Park in Abington, and it was land transferred to Ezekiel Reed. It is the crown jewel of Abington's park system, and for years, abolitionists would come down and speak about the horrors of slavery, led to people being very outraged at the practices, forcing their legislators into making decisions that led to the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln. Another piece of property in Bridgewater that's historic in terms that it was a stop on the Underground Railroad, the Tory House right in Bridgewater Town Common. It was built in 1698. It was named after a Tory sympathizer. The Tory sympathizers were people that didn't support the revolution. They were loyalists to the English government at a time when they were transitioning before the Revolutionary War. They were tarred and feathered and chased out of town. Later, that property became an inn and other issues. But in 1848, it was used as a stop on the Underground Railroad. William and Ellen Crafts found a unique way to travel after they escaped down south, coming on their way to up to Boston. William's role was that of a slave, and because Ellen was fair-skinned, she acted as an invalid white man, even though she was a white woman, and they wouldn't be traveling with a slave. A very well-known escape and part of the great history of the Underground Railroad. Last but not least, we're showing one of our colonial records. Plymouth County came out of Plymouth Colony, and there's some great history from the early colonists. Barnstable County was part of Plymouth Colony originally, and there's a document in 1639 where the colony court voted that if you own land in Yarmouth, you could only have one lot for your house. You couldn't have an empty lot. They were required to build on it. So it certainly was one of the first decisions relative to zoning, which encouraged housing. And current today is up in Beacon Hill, they're looking to increase housing because of the tightness of the real estate market. At the Plymouth County Register of Deeds, we have a temperature humidity controlled vault that we hold the colonial records in the handwriting of the colonists from that era, tells some incredibly tremendous history. I want to thank the folks here at Brockton Cable Access Television. This is my 99th show. We try to tell people about the importance of protecting their real estate and tell you what's going on in the real estate market. I want to thank Mike Simmons and Eric Thibault for helping with the show today, and thank Brockton Cable Access for letting me produce this show. They provide me with the CD. We burn copies. We send this off to cable access providers throughout Plymouth County so people can have an idea what's going on with what for most people is their most valuable asset. And so we hope you have a great start of the new year, and we'll see you next month.